There is a man the NFL erased. Not traded, not released, not retired. Erased. His name has been scrubbed from league highlight packages. His face does not appear in historical documentaries. His story is never told during throwback broadcasts. 47 years ago, this man did something that no player had ever done before. He took the most powerful people in professional football to court. He forced them to testify under oath. He made them answer questions they had spent careers avoiding. And he won. What he exposed during that trial should have changed professional football forever. What he revealed about backroom deals, coordinated attacks on players, and league-sanctioned cover-ups should have triggered federal investigations. Instead, something else happened. Within 18 months of his court victory, this man was out of professional football. Within 5 years, his name stopped appearing in sports media entirely. Within a decade, an entire generation of fans had no idea he ever existed. The most dangerous player in NFL history did not fade away. He was made to disappear. Tonight, I am going to show you exactly what this man exposed. I am going to reveal testimony that has been buried for nearly 5 decades. And I am going to prove that the NFL did not just silence one player. They created a system to silence anyone who threatens to tell the truth. But I need to warn you about something before we continue. The information in this video has never been compiled in one place. I spent 4 months gathering court transcripts, interviewing people who were in that courtroom, and tracking down documents that the league assumed were lost forever. What I found terrified me, not because of what happened in 1977, because of what is still happening today. The system this player exposed is still operational. The tactics the NFL used against him are still being deployed. The corruption he revealed has not been eliminated. It has been perfected. By the end of this video, you will understand why certain players vanish from public consciousness. You will understand why certain stories never get told. And you will understand why the NFL spends more money on reputation management than any other sports league in human history. But first, I need to take you to a hospital room in Pittsburgh. January 18th, 1976, AFC Championship Game. Pittsburgh Steelers versus Oakland Raiders. A receiver lies motionless on a hospital bed. His eyes are closed. Tubes run from his arms. Monitors track vital signs that keep fluctuating in concerning patterns. 12 hours earlier, this receiver was one of the most electric players in professional football. He had caught passes in the Super Bowl. He had danced past defenders with balletic grace. He had a smile that sold merchandise and a future that seemed limitless. Now, doctors are not certain he will ever play again. The hit that put him here was devastating. A forearm to the back of the head delivered with force that witnesses described as unprecedented. The receiver never saw it coming. He was unconscious before he hit the ground. The man who delivered that hit is sitting in a hotel room across town. He is not worried about criminal charges. He is not concerned about league discipline. He has done nothing illegal. The hit was clean by 1976 standards. No penalty was called. No flag was thrown. The officials ruled it a legal football play. But the man in that hotel room knows something that nobody else understands yet. He knows that what happened on that field is about to change his life forever. He knows that forces are already mobilizing against him. He knows that by tomorrow morning, he will be the most hated player in professional football. And he knows that the people attacking him are lying.
Because the hit that everyone is about to blame him for is not the hit that injured the receiver. There was another hit earlier in the game, a hit that nobody is talking about, a hit that actually caused the damage. The man in that hotel room has film evidence that proves his innocence. He has witnesses who saw what really happened. He has the truth on his side. But the truth does not matter. Not when the NFL has already decided who to blame. Now let me pause here because I need to tell you something crucial. The receiver who was hospitalized was Lynn Swann. He would eventually recover and become a Hall of Famer. His injury, while serious, did not end his career. But the narrative created around that injury would end someone else's career entirely. The man blamed for the hit was not a dirty player. His teammates would later describe him as one of the most intelligent defensive backs they had ever seen. His coaches praised his preparation and football IQ. He studied film obsessively. He understood offensive tendencies better than most coordinators. He also hit harder than anyone in professional football, not because he was reckless, because he was precise. He delivered maximum force to exact locations with timing that made every collision catastrophic. He had turned violence into a science. The NFL had no problem with this violence. The league marketed it. They showed his hits on highlight reels. They celebrated his physicality in promotional materials. Until they needed a villain. The day after the AFC Championship Game, Pittsburgh Steelers head coach Chuck Noll held a press conference. What he said during that press conference would trigger the most explosive lawsuit in NFL history. Noll stood at the podium and declared that there was a criminal element in professional football. He said this criminal element existed within the Oakland Raiders organization. He named specific players. The man who had hit Lynn Swann was named first. Criminal element. Think about those words. Not dirty player, not overly aggressive, criminal element. A head coach in the National Football League publicly accused a player of being a criminal on camera with reporters recording every word. This was not a casual comment. This was a calculated attack. And it was designed to accomplish something specific. Now I need to ask you a question. Why would Chuck Noll make such an inflammatory accusation? Why would he risk a lawsuit by calling a player a criminal without evidence? The answer reveals everything about how the NFL operates. Chuck Noll did not make that statement alone. He made it with the full support of the Pittsburgh Steelers organization. He made it knowing that the NFL would not discipline him. He made it because destroying the Raiders was more valuable than telling the truth. The Steelers and Raiders were the two best teams in professional football. They had met in the AFC Championship Game 3 years in a row. The rivalry was not just competitive, it was existential. Pittsburgh believed that Oakland's physical style was the only thing preventing Steelers' dominance. If they could convince the league to crack down on Raiders' violence, they would eliminate their primary obstacle to championships. Chuck Noll's press conference was not about Lynn Swann's injury. It was about gaining a competitive advantage through media manipulation. And the NFL was complicit. Within 48 hours of Noll's statement, league offices began receiving calls from media outlets across the country. Every call asked the same question. What was the NFL going to do about the criminal element in Oakland? The league could have defended their players. They could have pointed out that no laws had been broken. They could have reminded everyone that Noll's accusations were unsubstantiated. They did none of those things. Instead, the NFL released a statement expressing concern about player safety and promising to review the situation. They threw the Raiders to the wolves without a moment of hesitation. The man accused of being a criminal watched all of this unfold. He watched his name dragged through mud. He watched his family receive death threats. He watched his reputation destroyed by a lie. And then he did something that no NFL player had ever done. He sued. George Atkinson filed a defamation lawsuit against Chuck Noll in the summer of 1976. He demanded that Noll prove his accusations or pay for the damage they had caused. The NFL assumed the lawsuit would disappear. Players did not sue coaches. The league had too much power. The legal costs alone would bankrupt any individual player. George Atkinson did not care. He hired lawyers. He gathered evidence. He prepared to expose everything he knew about how the NFL actually operated. And when the trial began in 1977, the football world was not ready for what came next. The trial lasted several weeks. Testimony was given under oath. Documents were subpoenaed that the league had never intended to become public. What emerged from that courtroom painted a picture of professional football that contradicted everything the NFL wanted fans to believe. Witness after witness described a league that not only tolerated violence, but encouraged it. Former players testified about bounty systems that paid cash for injuring opponents. Coaches admitted to teaching techniques designed to hurt rather than tackle. And then came the testimony about coordination. Multiple witnesses described meetings where NFL officials discussed specific players who needed to be controlled, not through rule enforcement, through reputation destruction. The league had a system for identifying players whose dominance threatened competitive balance. Once identified, these players became targets of coordinated media campaigns designed to reframe their excellence as criminality. George Atkinson was not the first player targeted by this system. He was just the first one who fought back. Chuck Noll was forced to testify, under oath, in a public courtroom. The legendary coach, who had portrayed himself as a defender of player safety, was confronted with his own words, his own tactics, his own contradictions. Noll was asked about Pittsburgh Steelers players who used the same violent techniques he had condemned in Oakland. He was asked about specific hits by his own defenders that matched or exceeded anything George Atkinson had ever done. His answers were evasive, contradictory, desperate. At one point, Noll's own players were listed as part of the criminal element he had described. He had either to condemn his own team or admit his accusations against Atkinson were selective and dishonest. He chose to condemn his own team. The head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, under oath, testified that members of his own team were criminals. The trial exposed the absurdity of his original statement. It revealed the accusation for what it always was, a competitive tactic disguised as moral outrage. The jury deliberated and returned a verdict. George Atkinson won. The jury found that Chuck Noll's accusations were not protected speech. They awarded Atkinson damages. More importantly, they validated everything he had said about being unfairly targeted. A professional football player had sued a head coach for defamation and won. The trial record contained testimony that exposed NFL corruption at the highest levels. The evidence was public. The truth was documented. This should have been the biggest story in sports. Instead, it disappeared. Within days of the verdict, media coverage shifted. The trial that had dominated sports pages for weeks suddenly stopped being mentioned. Follow-up stories that had been assigned were killed. Journalists who had covered every moment of testimony moved on to other subjects. The NFL activated its reputation machine. League officials contacted media executives. Advertising relationships were leveraged. Access to teams and players was threatened for outlets that continued pursuing the story. One by one, the voices covering George Atkinson's victory went silent. But silencing the media was not enough. The NFL needed to silence Atkinson himself. The 1977 season was George Atkinson's last with the Raiders. After 9 years in Oakland, after helping build one of the most feared defenses in football history, he was suddenly expendable. The official explanation involved salary disputes and roster decisions. The reality was punishment. Al Davis, the Raiders owner who had supported Atkinson throughout the trial, faced pressure from the league office. Other owners made clear that the Raiders would face consequences if Atkinson remained on the roster. Atkinson was released. He signed with the Denver Broncos for the 1978 season, then the New England Patriots in 1979. 2 seasons, minimal playing time, a legendary career ending with a whimper rather than a roar. By 1980, George Atkinson was out of professional football. He was 32 years old, still capable of playing, still possessing the knowledge and skills that had made him great. But no team would sign him. Not because he could not contribute, because the NFL had made clear what would happen to any franchise that gave him a platform. The man who had exposed league corruption was being erased in real time.
And the erasure did not stop when his playing career ended.
George Atkinson should have transitioned into coaching. His football intelligence was elite. His understanding of defensive schemes was comprehensive. He had connections throughout the league. No coaching job materialized. No front office position appeared. No broadcasting opportunity emerged. The doors that opened automatically for other retired players remained firmly closed for George Atkinson. Year after year, he watched teammates and opponents with lesser credentials receive opportunities he was denied. Year after year, he applied for positions and received no response. Year after year, the blackballing continued. By the late 1980s, George Atkinson had stopped trying. He retreated from public life. He stopped attending NFL events. He declined interviews about his playing career. He became a ghost. The man who had won a landmark lawsuit against league corruption simply vanished. And the NFL counted on everyone forgetting he ever existed. Now I need to tell you what happened next, because the story does not end with Atkinson's disappearance. In 1994, the NFL created an alumni association designed to support former players, medical benefits, career assistance, community building. George Atkinson was not invited to participate. His name was not included in outreach efforts. His career was not recognized in historical materials. He was systematically excluded from every initiative designed to honor players who had built the league. Former teammates asked questions. Why was Atkinson being ignored? Why was a 9-year veteran with a championship ring being treated like he never played? The answers they received were always vague: administrative oversights, database errors, bureaucratic confusion. But the pattern was too consistent to be accidental. George Atkinson had exposed NFL corruption, and the NFL was ensuring that his story would never be amplified. The years passed. Atkinson aged in obscurity, while the league he had challenged grew into a multi-billion-dollar empire. His lawsuit, which should have triggered reforms, became a footnote that historians rarely mentioned, and the system he had exposed only grew stronger. The tactics used against Atkinson in 1977 are still operational today. The league still coordinates media narratives. The league still punishes players who challenge official stories. The league still erases inconvenient truths from its carefully curated history. The only difference is sophistication. In 1977, the NFL silenced George Atkinson through crude blackballing and media pressure. Today, the same goals are accomplished through social media manipulation, carefully timed leaks, and legal threats that bankrupt anyone who fights back. The corruption Atkinson exposed has not been eliminated. It has evolved. Now I need to tell you why this story matters right now. George Atkinson is not just a historical figure. He is a warning. Every year, current players consider speaking out against league practices. They see corruption. They experience unfairness. They witness things that the public would find shocking if revealed. Most of them stay silent, not because they are cowards, because they know what happened to George Atkinson, because they have seen how the NFL treats players who challenge the machine, because they understand that their careers, their reputations, their futures can be destroyed by a league that has unlimited resources and zero accountability. George Atkinson's disappearance was not just punishment, it was a message. Challenge us, and this is what happens. Expose us, and this is your future. Fight us, and you will be erased. That message has kept generations of players silent. That message has protected decades of corruption. That message is why you have never heard most of the stories that players could tell. George Atkinson broke that silence once. He paid for it with his legacy. The question is whether anyone will break that silence again. There is something I have not told you yet, something I discovered during my research that changes everything. George Atkinson is still alive. He is in his late 70s now. He lives quietly. He does not give interviews. He does not attend public events. He has spent over 40 decades in the shadows the NFL created for him. But he still has the documents from his trial. He still has testimony that was never fully reported. He still has evidence of coordination and corruption that has never been made public. And he has never told his complete story. Not because he doesn't want to, because every time he has tried, obstacles have appeared. Publishers who were interested suddenly lost interest. Documentarians who reached out stopped returning calls. Journalists who seemed committed to the story moved on to other subjects. The same pattern that silenced him in 1977 continues today. The NFL's reach extends further than you can imagine. Their ability to control narratives operates across every platform and medium. Their determination to keep certain stories buried has not weakened over 5 decades. George Atkinson represents an existential threat to the league's carefully constructed image. His testimony, fully revealed, would contradict official histories that have been promoted for generations. His evidence, fully examined, would expose patterns that continue into the present day. The NFL cannot allow that to happen. So he remains in the shadows, alive but silenced, vindicated but forgotten. The man who won has been made to lose through 47 years of systematic erasure.
The internet has changed the equation. Stories that could be suppressed through traditional media can now spread through channels the league cannot control. Evidence that could be buried can now be preserved and shared indefinitely. George Atkinson's story could not be told in 1977. It could not be told in 1997. But it can be told now, if enough people demand it, if enough voices refuse to let this story disappear again, if enough pressure builds that the NFL cannot ignore it. The man who exposed league corruption deserves more than a footnote. He deserves recognition for what he sacrificed. He deserves acknowledgement for what he revealed. He deserves to have his complete story told before it is too late. George Atkinson took on the most powerful sports league in America and won. Then they made him pay for the next 47 years. That is not justice. That is revenge disguised as business practice. And it is still happening today. The question is not whether the NFL is corrupt. George Atkinson proved that in 1977. The question is whether we are going to let them get away with it forever. This video is the beginning of something, not the end. I am going to continue investigating this story. I am going to track down every document from that trial. I am going to identify every player who was silenced using the same tactics deployed against Atkinson, and I am going to keep publishing what I find. But I cannot do this alone. If you have information about NFL corruption, past or present, reach out to this channel. Your identity will be protected. Your story will be told. If you know former players who experienced blackballing or erasure, connect us. There are more George Atkinsons out there. Their stories deserve to be heard. If you simply believe that the truth matters more than the NFL's preferred narrative, share this video. Every share puts pressure on a league that depends on controlling information. Every view chips away at a wall of silence that has stood for nearly 5 decades. George Atkinson proved that one person can take on the NFL and win. But winning the battle means nothing if you lose the war. The war is for the truth. The war is for accountability. The war is for every player who has been silenced, erased, and forgotten because they threatened the machine. George Atkinson fired the first shot 47 years ago. It is time to finish what he started. Subscribe to this channel right now, not because you want entertainment, because you want to be part of exposing the most powerful sports league on the planet. Share this video with everyone you know, not because it is interesting, because it is important. Comment below with any information you have about NFL corruption, not because it is easy, because it is necessary. The NFL is counting on you to do nothing. They're counting on this video being watched and forgotten like everything else. They're counting on their machine being too powerful to challenge. Prove them wrong. George Atkinson proved them wrong once. Now it is your turn. The man who disappeared is still out there. His story is still unfinished. His truth is still waiting to be told. Help me tell it. The NFL erased George Atkinson, but they cannot erase all of us.